Today I'll be going over the long overdue review of the Asics Gel Nimbus 25 after 50 miles. I recently got back from Europe and running the Paris Marathon, and while over there I got a chance to take the shoe over 50 miles as well as walk around in it. So I got to will share my thoughts on both running in it as well as just walking in it overall.
Here I am running in Vienna, Austria. Currently running on a very long avenue called, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Praterhauptal. And it's actually the location or part of the street that Eliud Kipchoge did a sub 2-hour marathon. Vienna's pancake flat. Weather's amazing. Currently light breeze hovering around 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Very lovely day. Sun isn't out fully, so it feels great. Gonna do a couple of strides here to make sure I know what that feels like for marathon next week, but pretty cool. I get to run in a great location, beautiful, and also where history was made. Just finished up our shakeout run near Pleasant Court, so right here about around mile 1 of the race, so you get to walk and preview that a bit. So alright, preparations are done. It's time to relax, enjoy some breakfast, and ready to do this tomorrow.
Hope you enjoyed some of that footage from running in Europe. It was just a blast. Normally when I run, I like to put in music, and while I did that on a few occasions, in general, I ran without music. I got to listen to these sounds of the city, the hustle and bustle, so it was just a lot of fun, really being present in the moment and running through just beautiful European cities. While traveling, I brought the Asics Gel Nimbus 25 to 55 miles and countless walking miles in them. I probably averaged somewhere around 10 to 13 miles walking around a day. I probably walked a little too much days before the marathon. A little foreshadowing there. But the sentiments of my first impressions have not changed. My first impressions of the shoes is that I absolutely loved it, and 50 plus miles afterwards, I still absolutely love the shoe. It's my first real introduction to Asics. I've tried a couple of Asics shoes in the past, but this is my first Asics purchase, and I just cannot be happier with the purchase. It's probably the shoe that has surpassed any expectations I've ever owned before. Quick rundown of the specs. This has an 8mm drop with 41.5 millimeters in the heel, 33.5 millimeters in the forefoot, and it has pure gel implemented on the inside towards the back of the heel, and then it features FF Blast Plus Eco Cushion. I don't know what's up with shoe companies just having a mouthful for these shoes these days, and then it has a knit upper. And additionally, for my size 8.5, this came in at 9.9 ounces. The initial run was a long run, a 20-mile long run, and it was steady pace with slowly increasing the pace towards the end of that run. Leading up to the days before the marathon, I threw a couple of strides in there just to see how fast I can pick it up, even very short 10-second bursts, running as fast as I can. And obviously this is intended to be as a recovery shoe or a easy pace shoe. So while I was able to hit those speeds, I knew I couldn't maintain, aside from just my fitness, but it was definitely a challenge to me to keep up that fast pace for such a prolonged period of time. I brought this up to about marathon pace, a little faster than marathon pace for about 2 miles, so it can get there. And so in terms of a taper shoe, I thought it was wonderful. It was, if you're traveling for a marathon and so you bring your race shoes and you just want to bring one pair of shoes, these are great because they provide enough cushion, lets your feet rest easy and not get too much impact. And you know, this can go up to speed if you want to throw a little bit faster. I did like 2 miles at about 7:30 pace for a couple of segments, so it can maintain a decent speed for that amount of time. Compared to another cushion shoe that I have, which would be the Clifton 8, the Clifton being a little bit lighter shoe, you can pick up the pace on that a little bit easier, but I wouldn't say it's a substantial difference. When I first tried the Clifton 8, I also fell in love with that shoe, but this is just, in terms of comfort, to me it is ahead of that shoe for now. Both the upper and the feeling underfoot is comfier in this. Additionally, even though it's a very cushioned shoe, just the geometry and curve on the front of this, I guess it's a semi-rocker. It just makes turnover really, really easy. It gets you through your gait cycle without much effort. So you never feel like you're truly sinking into the shoe. It's just soft landing and then on to the next step in your progression. The rubber on the sole is placed very well. I see very little wear, just a couple of the areas where I tend to wear down my shoes, but this is just, I think, very, very well thought out in terms of where it is placed for my feet. The mid part of the area, it tends to be wider, so you don't feel unstable at all. And again, it's just very minimal wear, and I think that this is going to last, past 400, maybe 500 miles. I've seen a couple of people push this up to 600 miles, so this is definitely going to go the distance. Maybe the midsole may not be as responsive, so that might die down faster over time. But in terms of the outsole, I think that's going to last a significantly long time, probably longer than the midsole itself. And another thing about the outsole is that it is quite grippy. it's been a little rainy here in California the past few months, and so when days that I go out for a run, I wouldn't go out in the rain, but it would probably have rained earlier in the day or previous day, so the ground was a little wet. And same thing in Europe, there were days where there was just a couple of showers here and there, so I would run through puddles and just wet floor. It is kind of on the smoother side compared to like something like Adidas that has that continental rubber, so maybe in a Pacific Northwest setting, I don't know how that would perform. But if it's just not actively raining, I had no issues whatsoever. Wet ground, no problem. Actively raining, and unfortunately I cannot say it. Talking about the upper, it is a very soft upper, very comfortable to wear during running, and you can kind of, I like a tight fit, but as you run through a long run, your feet kind of can swell up a little bit. It does provide enough give, and for those that do like a roomier fit, it still provides solid lockdown because of how flexible the upper is. And it's been relatively cold here in California as well as in Europe leading up to it, so just in terms of the comfort for that, it was amazing. I had no issues with that at all. Feet never got cold, and it was just a comfortable ride from top to bottom, both the upper and the midsole. I mentioned in my first impression video that I keep an eye out for the Pure Gel, and yeah, you slightly notice it. It's nothing that is too distracting, like in the case of the Nike Pegasus where you can notice it a little bit more. I noticed it more when walking around the cities where you just step and you naturally hit with your heel first. You notice it is just soft, comfortable. I will go ahead and highlight some of the negatives, which again, there's really not that many. I think that the tongue and the pull tab are too flexible. As I mentioned, if you pass through security, you have to take off your shoe. I just felt, like putting it on, it just felt like a little extra tug on there. And the shoelaces are also ridiculously long, but again, I just tuck them in. Minor nitpicky things. But the thing that might be concerning, and again, as I mentioned, it's been cooler lately, but there were some days where it was a little bit warmer, and this thing does run on the warmer side. So come summertime, I don't think that this is going to be a shoe that I'll be reaching for. I naturally just have sweatier feet, and while it did not bother me during the runs, after some runs, I would just take off the shoes and I would definitely feel that they were wet inside. Something that other shoes, they're not as wet or they dry faster. And so that was one thing specifically when I would go for a run in the morning, they'd be wet, and then shower and then get dressed and ready to go sightseeing. I put these shoes on an hour or two afterwards and it'd still be pretty damp and a little gross. So I luckily had another pair of boots that I walk around, but yeah, I don't think that this is gonna fare too well in the summertime. Again though, during the run, I just didn't notice it. It's only after where you realize, oh, this is my feet got a little sweatier than I realized. So this in turn also caused my shoe to have a couple of bad odors just because, again, I sweat a lot. So, again, I still absolutely love this shoe. It's just some additional maintenance that I will have to... Some additional maintenance is going to be required in terms of cleaning and upkeep of the shoe. It is a trade-off between comfort and breathability. I tend to find that the more breathable shoes are not as comfortable just because in terms of the material tends to be a little bit thinner. I tend to not like too thin of a material, whether it be in my socks or shoes. So it's a trade-off, but it's a trade-off that I would generally tend to pick comfort over breathability. Again, it's not like it's still pretty breathable. It's not like it's anything suffocating. Again, the one that comes to mind is my Ultra Boost that I just put them on and I was uncomfortable from how hot it was. This, again, I did not notice it while running for hours in this or walking around all day. I love this shoe. I love it absolutely so much, to the point where I almost picked up a Paris Marathon version that they had at the expo. It is actually available online for those that want to pick one up. I didn't pick one up only because I found it a little redundant to have another version of a shoe that I already own. I would like to try on different shoes, but I'm still pretty tempted for that. At the expo, they were definitely pushing that shoe, and my wife even got to try them on, and just their first words were like, wow, these are incredibly comfortable. And I think that's gonna be everyone's first thoughts when they try on the shoe, of just how comfortable it is. Especially during marathon training, where there are going to be just days where you are exhausted, and for just putting them on and getting out there, the turnover on this, it's going to be smooth, and it'll allow you to get more miles in than you would have imagined, just because of how much comfortable getting out the door is going to be. So in those just hard days, just know it's going to be an easy ride, comfortable ride, and nothing to fret about. And so I highly recommend this shoe. I just cannot. I think they knocked it out of the ballpark with this shoe. A couple of quick thoughts on the cities that I ran through. First, I started off in Budapest. Beautiful city, lovely people, amazing food. I think it's a city that should be higher up in people's travels list. And I particularly, in terms of when it comes to running, the Danube River, I hope I'm saying that right, Danube, it runs along the city and kind of cuts the city and divides the Buda and the Pest side. We were staying on the Buda side. And there's just these pretty continuous, uninterrupted path along the river. So great river front cycling path and run path with a couple of intersections for cars to pass by, but I had no issues running in that. It was a lot of fun. And then Vienna, I had the opportunity to run on a long street where part of the course where Eliud Kipchoge did his sub 2-hour marathon. It was pretty awesome running through a place where history was made. Very flat city, and just it was a blast to run through Vienna. Very exciting, and that's where I did a lot of the strides, just because you kind of could push that pace there, just because it's just these long stretches of uninterrupted straight path. Amsterdam, I was very much looking forward to running in Amsterdam. The reality of it did not match what I imagined it'd be. It's a city that's known for its bike paths and maybe I had to get outside of the city, but there were too many bikes. I just feel like I had to be so vigilant of bikes running me over and being careful on not just cars, but bikes crossing and being aware of where they were at all times. And then the way that the city has cross streets, I just feel like I would run and I'd immediately be interrupted by a signal. And it's just a lot of stopping and going. I found a park, and the park, running through the parks was very lovely. But I originally had thought to run to Haarlem. Unfortunately, that did not happen, where it would have been a more continuous path. So maybe that would have been a little bit better. But at least running in Amsterdam proper, if you do visit, I would stick to the parks. Bondo Park is as well, one near the museums, very lovely, lots of runners, and there's a few other parks in Amsterdam proper which were very lovely to run on. And finally, Paris. I got to preview the Paris course, and I got to run part down the Seine River. So it's a beautiful city to run on. And so Paris has made an effort to make it more pedestrian and bike friendly. So I think you'll continue seeing more and more running and cycling paths in Paris, and I just had a wonderful time running there. So I think that if you're traveling, definitely always bring running shoes if you're into running or cycling, because what better way to get to know a city than to run through it. the Paris Marathon recap, which is a marathon I do recommend. Full thoughts on that coming very soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content.